Okay, amazing. So today we're going to talk about the forgotten ingredient of successful influencer ROI, which actually sounds a bit mysterious, the headline, isn't it? And it could be a quite cliche sales trick with the forgotten ingredient, but actually it is not. I genuinely believe that what Ian, and Erik is going to present to you guys today is potentially one of the most important drivers of positive influence ROI, and something that often is very forgotten from the brand side of things. And it's not only my personal belief that is coloring this headline, but the research supports this thesis too. And that's why I, Ian, and Erik are super excited to have you guys with us today, so we can take you through a little journey and show you what we've been doing for the last few months. And hopefully you find something valuable out from it. So for you that don't know me, I've been working at Tailify for over 3 years, and for the last couple of months, I've been spending time at innovation and psychology research, since my background is at psychology. And what we've been doing is we've been trying to crack the code of influence. And for the ones that has been joining our webinars before, or is a part of our WhatsApp broadcast, or is following us on LinkedIn, you probably heard this before and you know what we mean with that. But for the others, this might be new for you. And if you ask me, it sounds really cool, cracking the code of influence, but what does that actually mean? Why have I been spending months researching things like trust, energy, authenticity? And I'm going to skip the kind of standard explanation to the cracking of the code of influence and take a little bit more of a personal story to explain it. And I'm going to explain it with this chart, because this is actually a chart showing the performance data from one of my own first clients. And when I signed this client, I was super excited to show them what we could do for them, show them what we can deliver. But then when we got back the campaign results, we under-delivered really badly. They only got back 10% of their investment in sales, as you can see. Well, luckily, I guess our willingness to improve by using the data we gathered to optimize the campaign shined through, and we got a second chance. And this time we improved with over 20 times. And today, as you can see, the client has been growing even more. They are today a winner at doing influence marketing. And there's plenty of winners out there. Some of you, which you have heard about. You've heard about Gymshark, you heard about the likes of Kylie Cosmetics, of Glossier, Nike, and you all heard about them. But what is actually the ugly truth? Well, that is that most brands are actually losing. So if you take a second and just look at this chart or this graph here, this is the data from a client that we have today that they shared with us before we started working with them. And what we saw was that only 7.4% of their influence were profitable. 15% went totally bust. The average ROI was negative. But the most important and the most interesting finding you can see from this graph is if you look to the left and you see this spike, right? It shows that it's such a small percentage of the influencers that actually deliver most of the sales. So it's actually only 1% of the top contributors contribute with over 50% of the sales of the campaign. So this is what we call the 20-80 rule. So maybe you've heard Ian speaking about it before, but it's about that 20% of the influencers drive 80% of the sales. And we see this across many, many brands. And it's no wonder that most brands find their biggest challenge with working with influencers to be finding the right influencer. But what if we could remove that challenge? What if we could find the perfect influencers for your brand right away? And if there's something that this chart actually shows, that it is that there are specific metrics that strongly predict success that we actually can improve. Some metrics are correlated with a successful integration and a successful influencer. This growth, this chart is not random because we've been continuing growing. We've seen this across our clients. It is not pure luck. So what if we could find those metrics that predict success and implement them into a formula? And that's what we're doing when we're cracking the code of influence. You can think about it a little bit like the perfect bolognese. When I look at this picture, I mean, soon lunch, I get really hungry. It looks so yummy, and you all eating the perfect bolognese. You just want more, right? But for it to become this perfect bolognese, it needs to include all the vital ingredients. Certainly, the picture at the last slide didn't miss any of these ingredients. The thing is that today, following this recipe, there are missing several of the vital ingredients for influencer marketing. So how can people then expect to taste this perfect bolognese when both the garlic, the tomato, and the meat is not included in the cooking? So what we need to do is we need to uncover, by zooming in both at the mind of the psychology, the data, and uncover the vital ingredients for influencer marketing, for the perfect recipe, and add those ingredients to every campaign. And that's what we're doing when we're cracking the code of influence, or cracking the code of the bolognese. You can call it whatever you want, but the key takeaway remains the same. If you can understand the ingredients of success, we can then, one by one, by adding them into our recipe, actually improve the campaigns and realize the full potential of influencer marketing. So today, what we're going to do is we're going to take you on this journey where we zoom in on one of the most vital ingredients that often are forgotten. So to give you a better idea of what's to come, this is what we are going to go through today. I am soon going to stop talking about bolognese and actually reveal the actual component we're going to speak about. Erik is going to dig deeper into that, and Ian is going to take you through how you can actually implement that into your work already today. So in short, the objective for you today is to really get a clear understanding of this component and how you can work with that in your team and in your influencer marketing work. And of course, clear next steps and actionable steps for you to take and actually implement this directly after this presentation. So let's get to it. I'm going to start by doing a quick brand exercise. So imagine that this is you at this picture. You just bought your new car. As you can tell, you're really happy. You're going to go around in the city, show all your friends, your family, you know, as you always do when you buy a car. But before you end up here, you actually need to take the decision on which car to buy. And when you go to the car dealer this day, they only have 3 brands that are available. So you have Toyota, Volvo, and Audi to choose from. Without overthinking anything, pick one of the brands. Which car would you choose? And write that down on a paper or on your phone, or just keep it as a mental note. And we're going to get back to that at the end of this presentation, and it's going to make so much more sense. But just write down the brand you would choose to purchase, and then we can move on. So when you're choosing your new car, your decision here was taken solely on what this logo or the brand here communicates to you. But when you're getting influenced by an influencer to do a specific purchase, of course, there's other components that are influencing you and are affecting your decision. One of them might be how relevant the influence and brand collaboration is. Another one, of course, would be how good is the influencer actually influencing you. And the latter is one of the things we've been looking into and zooming into over the last few months. What actually determines a good influencer? And every time this question was asked, one of the words we seem to get back to over and over again, no matter which sample we actually asked, was that authenticity is important. And as a brand, you've probably been running influence marketing campaigns yourself, and you've been telling yourself, your team, or the agency that we need to have authentic influencers. It needs to look authentic. But what does that actually mean? What is authenticity? And we came to realize that authenticity is being true to your own beliefs and values, which means that you are yourself when you're acting in accordance with your values, which in other words means that you are a product of your values. You are your values. Your values determines who you are. So if you are your values, that means that where you're heading in life, your aims, your goals, everything is shaped by the values. What you're doing today, which tasks you engage in, which things you do after work, all of that is shaped by your values. What you're wearing today, that is an expression of your values. So if you take a second and look down at what you're wearing right now, what kind of clothes are you wearing? Are they expressing creativity, calm, energy, colorness? Are they black? Are they creative? All these words. I'm wearing a yellow, you can barely see it, I'm wearing a yellow shirt today. What does that mean? And Ian, you're wearing a beige polo or turtleneck, whatever that's called, jumper. What does that express? And that expresses your value. Everything in life expresses who you are. And it's the same with every choice you make, every decision you take, and it's the same when you're buying a product. So for example, when you're choosing which car you're going to buy, that completely comes down to what values that car communicates, and if that stands by your values, because you are your values, right? And this kind of concept, you are your values, it's not a new concept for me. It's not revolutionizing. I've heard it plenty of times before. But what has been revolutionizing for me is when I started this research journey, I understood that when it comes to values today, it can be systematically measured, systematically operationalized. And there is a rich literature on how these scientific measures of values predicts human behavior and consumer choice. And that's when I took on my favorite little psychology research hat, that I found out that one of the leading researchers, or actually the one leading researcher on this field, was Erik. That's been researching this for many, many years. And that's why I'm awfully happy to have been able and have gotten the chance to work with Erik for the last few weeks and months, and also terribly happy to have him on board today for this presentation. So just a quick intro of who Erik is. So he is Associate Professor at the Amsterdam School of International Business and at Northumbria University in Newcastle. And he specializes in consumer behavior, psychology, brand positioning, sustainable marketing. He has written an amazing book called Brand Positioning, which has won the Marketing Literature Prize. And he's also the founder of the Value Compass, which is an amazing and powerful tool that allows you to measure value congruence between the brand and the consumer, which, without further ado, I won't speak too much about right now, because I'm gonna give it up for Erik and let him continue. He will dig deeper into the world of values, and you will be amazed on how much and how rich this literature is. So Erik, I'll stop sharing my screen so you can take over. And there we go.
Okay, well, thank you, Alice, for this lovely introduction. Yeah, well, and I'm very happy that I'm able to share some of my ideas here on this platform, which, as Alice introduced, yeah, we talk about influencer marketing, we talk about how to make it more effective, because in the end, whatever activity you perform, it should be effective. And we talk about values. I will take here a couple of minutes to dig a little bit deeper into values. I will start off with a quote from, well, actually from one of Alice's slides. Actually, it's my own quote. Values guide people when they make choices. Consumers, when they're looking for products or services that express the values that are important to them, those are the type of products they will be looking for. Just think of it more specifically. What does this mean? Okay, we can talk about cars, but we'll get back to that later. Let's take chocolate, for instance. Suppose respect is a central value for you. Then probably when you look for chocolate, you will look for other types of chocolate than when prestige is a core value. If respect is an important value, you might look for ethically produced chocolate. If prestige is an important value for you, you might be looking for like Godiva, one of the big brands, to have maybe even to show off something or to show something. So you'll be looking for certain anchor points. That is what values are for people. And they help to connect to brands. But of course, that means that for brands, brand values are an essential part of the brand. They communicate the essence of the brand, and they help to show to people what the brand stands for. But of course, this means that only a true understanding of your brand values creates the right essence. If you profile in the wrong way, you'll be targeting the wrong thing. So if we look at it, I mean, brand values, I mean, people have values, that's kind of a natural thing, because people, I mean, we live, we have values. Brands essentially don't live. I mean, a brand cannot have values. A brand cannot have norms, because a brand is not a living thing. But you load them with values. You promote them, you do it in your marketing activities. And these values are often the result of brainstorm sessions, of creative sessions, of commercial sessions, and they bring you words like respect, honesty, sustainability, leadership, authenticity, etc. But, and that's what I want to share with you, values is not just a list of things that pop out of a brainstorm session, because then you might not get where you want to go. You have to realize that values are a psychological construct. And values did not appear just like that. The human value system, and we all have our own values here located, or maybe in our heart somewhere over there, but they are the result of millions of years of evolution. And I think that's important to realize. Actually, I'll take you on a journey of millions of years in the coming minutes. Quickly, of course, because otherwise it would take too long. Zooming into what actually values are and what it means. We know, we all have values. I have my own values, just as everybody listening here, you have your own standards, your own norms, your own values. The thing is, you were born with them. You carry your values around all your life. They, of course, are shaped through life events, but a lot of them are already there when you're born. They help you to make choices, they help you to make decisions. But the thing is, because you carry them with you all your life, they're becoming so natural to you that you actually are no longer consciously aware of your own values. I mean, if you ask values, what are your values? People will say, yeah, my values are respect, freedom, equality, words like that. But don't forget, those are social desirable expressions. They might not express what the real values of the person are. And if you want to connect with people, if you want to connect your brand with people, then it's important to connect with the real values, not what people say as the social desirable values. But of course, then the question is, how can you connect to people if they don't know what the real values are? Yeah. So that's people are not consciously aware of them. So going back a long time, where do values come from? I mean, I have values, my parents have values, their parents have values, etc., etc., etc. Values came about really in the past. I mean, in these old caveman times, we also had values because they managed to keep us alive. Values like power, values like safety. Safety, protect people in the group. Power, so you could hunt down the animals. And people with the strongest sense of safety managed to survive. And that's how values came about, because they evolutionized like this. People. But even going further, also animals might have values. This is a picture of my dog, and probably he has values too. I mean, I can ask my dog, what are your values? He won't say respect, freedom, equality, because he doesn't know. But also people, just like my dog, are not necessarily consciously aware of the values they have. I'm quite sure you can't do marketing to a dog and base that on the values he says. But it might be the same issue with people. People have values, but what are they? And how can you get in touch with them? So the big question is, how can you connect with the values of your target audience if the target audience is not consciously, in most cases, aware of their own values? I will show you a small example how that actually works, because you work on a subconscious level, and the example I will give you is, well, a very clear marketing example, so some of you might even know it. I mean, if I would ask a random audience, what are the core values of Coca Cola? The random audience won't know what the core values of Coca Cola are. They might say something like happiness, but won't go a lot further than that. You're an audience of marketing people, you might say a bit more, but the random audience, I mean, they just buy. They're not consciously aware of the core values of Coca Cola. A conclusion might be, okay, guys, well, then skip the whole value thing because people don't know them. But of course, it works on a deeper level. Coca Cola, if you ask people what is a famous Coca Cola commercial, they will go to Christmas, the Christmas commercial. You all know it. If I now ask, okay, guys, what are the core values of Christmas? Well, then it will be family, it will be fun, it will be, you know, a close feeling of being together, really a family feel. Coca-Cola explicitly associates with Christmas so that actually subconsciously people have a values association with a more family-oriented element when they think of Coca-Cola. And this is very useful because when you go into the supermarket and do your family shopping and you need to buy cola, there's a bigger probability you will go for Coca-Cola just because of this subconscious connection on family. I'm doing family shoppings for my family, which is, you know, nice, warm, etc. Coca-Cola, I think of nice, warm, etc. And I buy Coca-Cola, and there you go. So this is the subconscious level on which values work. And now, of course, it's important to know, how can I get the right values in my brand? I will go through a model that I designed, the 4 laws of branding, in which I show how values can be used to strengthen your brand. 4 laws, starting with law number 1. Brand values have to be embedded in the real qualities of the brand. So it's not just words. If you say our brand is honest, then there must be real qualities in the hardware or software of the brand that really make your brand honest. There must be something like that you can prove that you have ethically produced ingredients in your brand. Maybe you can prove that your brand keeps its promises significantly better in competition, but there must be a couple of things, real hard evidence by which you can show, yeah, okay, we're more honest than others because of. It must be there. Otherwise, honesty is just a word without any value. So brand values are not just a statement. They should be based on an essence, on a core strength of a brand, which you as brand perform better than other brands. Because law number 2, differentiation. The brand value should create a unique position of the brand compared, of course, to other brands. If I'm an honest brand, but all other brands are also honest, it's still a hygiene factor. You might need it, but it doesn't help to differentiate you. So they're not unique brand values that get you a step further. So it must be differentiating as well. And then we get to the 3rd law, and then this is consistency. Brand values have to be consistent. And in order to explain that, I will say a bit more about values. Because to understand consistency, again, a little bit more detail of what values are, I will give you here. Technically, values are personal beliefs related to a desirable end goal, and values motivate action to reach this goal. This means, for instance, if prestige or if honesty is a core value for you, suppose prestige is a core value for you, it means that if you get more prestige, you will be happier. Which means that you will do all kinds of actions to give yourself more prestige. Buy, you know, expensive brands because they show off their brand. Do stuff that bring prestige. So they motivate action in big, but in small, up to maybe grocery shoppings on all different levels. But there's more to it. Values, you know, I've been mentioning a couple: honesty, respect, sustainability, family life, innovation, etc., etc. It sounds like there are millions of values, but actually there are not. Values are not a random list of words because I showed you they came from evolution. it's a genetic thing. We have a certain value system in our mind that's human. And this value system helped us to survive, helped our ancestors to survive so that we are here. And this means that values, they drive our behavior. We're not conscious of them. So values are basically invisible drivers of behavior, but not just random words. I did a lot of research on it. And if you dive into psychology, if you look at other sources, you will find that values, psychologists spoken, is like a value system. And I made the value compass, which basically is this value system, but then in a brand choice context. And the value compass then will look like this. This basically is the constellation of values relevant to consumer choice. You see a number of values here. For instance, achievement, prestige, beauty, and you also see that they're put in a circle. This means, for instance, prestige to the right and beauty also to the right. They're close to each other, which means that these types of values are quite connected. But if you look at, for instance, stimulation to the right and safety at the top to the left, they're opposite from each other. This means that they're conflicting values. People either have a strong tendency to value safety or value stimulation, but it's difficult to combine them. Just think of a person who goes on a holiday and is looking for stimulation. Backpack holiday, you might go paragliding, bungee jumping, stimulating stuff. A person that wants to go on holiday to find safety, the family campground where they already went for generations. They know what they expect with, for sure, travel insurance. Imagine that these two people form a couple and want to go on holiday together. You can imagine conflict. So these are conflicting values. This means that if you construct values for your brand, you have to take these consistencies and conflicts into consideration. And I will give you an example of that. Okay, this summarizes basically. Values are organized in a system with compatible and conflicting values. We did research on, this is just an example, of research we did on healthcare institutes. We compared their values and profiled them in the value compass to see where it ends up. This is Healthcare Institute A, who profiled with the value statement, you can trust our professional caretakers. So with the word trust, which profiles with honesty, professional caretakers are professional, very functional, fits with functionality. So they're quite compatible values. This is a very consistent value statement. But we also have Healthcare Institute B that basically conquers the world, says we are reliable, leading healthcare, close to you, basically we do everything. But you can't do everything. As you all know, marketing, brand positioning is a matter of choice. And especially leading in healthcare, which is prestige, being the best. Prestige means I want to be better than you. And close to you, which stands for care, which means I want to be equal together with you. Well, you can't be at the same time better than others and at the same as others. This is a very complex, ambiguous message. And it's a conflicting message. It might work if you have a lot of time and you have a very high involved audience to create an ambiguous message. But as we all know, the current target audience, current people, generally they're not highly involved. They don't have time for ambiguous messages. Then don't give them an ambiguous message because they don't understand what you are. So consistency means choose your values carefully so that they're consistent with each other. Not just randomly brainstorm and think this is a nice word, that's a nice word, and this we can do as well. And, because then you get a picture like this. And don't forget, and that's the fourth law, consistency means that you focus on a specific set of values that is relevant to your target audience. Because as you know, marketing, brand values are part of marketing, be relevant for your target audience. But of course, the trick is, and the problem is, you want to connect your brand with a target audience on the value level, the deepest, the most abstract level, which is good because it means that, and Alice mentioned already, we talk about value congruence, which is the match between individual values and brand values. A stronger match, a stronger congruence between your brand's values and your target audience's values gives a stronger connection, gives more engagement, gives more word of mouth, gives a higher sales potential. That's what you want. But how could you match with the values of the people that are not even consciously aware of their own values? Because as I said, people generally don't know their values. They will come up with words like equality and freedom, and you don't want that. I mean, of course, it's good to have equality and freedom, but they're socially desirable values, not the true values. So how do you identify their values? And the fun thing is, you don't have to identify them anymore, because that's why we have influencer marketing. Influencers could stand in a perfect world, effectively could stand between you and your audience, because people will look or will associate with influencers of which they subconsciously feel this guy, this girl, this person, he or she matches with me. I want to listen to what he says because I believe in it, because we share the same values. Again, not consciously, but subconsciously, this is what happens. So influencers generally collect a group of followers with who they share the same mindset, with who they share the same values. So people feel connected with influencers when their values match. So then we shift from how to find the target audience with matching values to how to find influencers with matching values. Might still be a tricky question, but of course, this is where an organization like Tailify can help, because effective influencer marketing on the abstract, deepest value level first means map your own brand values, know what your brand stands for, and if you have your marketing well organized, you already have that. Second part is map the values of potential influencers, and then engage with those influencers where you find a high match between what your brand has to offer and what the influencer has as values. And of course, like I said, Tailify can help with that, and I'm quite sure that Ian can say a lot more about that. So I will share the floor now with Ian.
In between, I also wanted to jump in and say that if you have any questions, just put them in the chat and we will run through them at the end of the presentation during a Q&A.
Ian, your microphone is still on mute.
Thank you for that. Well, I have the great pleasure of saying thank you once again. Thank you very much for that kind introduction, Erik, and for that wonderful intellectual introduction into the world of values. I'm here to start to make that real for you and your business as a brand. So briefly about me, if you haven't already seen me on a webinar, my name is Ian, and I'm the head of product and R&D for Tailify. I've been building products at the intersection of data science, psychology, and software engineering here in London for the last 10 years. And my main claim to infamy is that I, with research help from DARPA, helped develop the algorithm that won the election for Trump and Brexit with Cambridge Analytica, sort of by accident. And I am here at Tailify in large measure to redeem myself and to use the power of data and psychology for good. And I think values are a very key component of that. Because one of the things that Cambridge Analytica did is they used personality to manipulate people's behavior. And what I'm hoping to do here at Tailify is to use values to elevate people's behavior. But in order to do that, well, you have to understand values. So now it's time for an exercise. I want to ask you and give you each as individuals a chance to figure out what values do you individually stand for. So you should be seeing a link in the chat to Erik's Values Compass app, which he's kindly lent us for this presentation. It is a 38-question test of values to help you understand where you fall on the values compass. So please click the link, go to the website, type in your name and hit the green create button right there on the bottom right of the page and answer the questions. And I can't wait to find out what it is you discover about yourself. The test shouldn't take more than 3 minutes. Please go with your initial thought and answer honestly. No one else is going to see this but you. This is purely to help you understand yourself and your own values through this tool. So I'm going to put on a timer for 3 minutes and enjoy the journey of discovery of finding out your values.
Ian, I
Yes.
shared a link, but people doesn't seem to see it. Would you mind sharing it once again in the chat?
Sure, I'll share it once more in the channel.
I see it in my
Oh,
chat.
are you? Did you post it to all panelists?
Oh, panelists, sorry.
Oh yeah, you posted to all panelists. Yeah, you'll need to post
There
it
we
to the
go.
room. There we are. There we are.
Thank you, Esme.
Vagaries of Zoom. Lovely. I'll restart the clock. Is anyone?
Okay. It should be able to work now. Sorry, that's the right one. You restart the clock again, please.
That's interesting. One more time. There we go. There we are. And just tap on the demo button. I was trying to sneak you into the very beginning of the survey. Looks like technology had other plans. Please message if you have any trouble starting the survey. And if you finish early, just look at your values compass and see if you can see yourself in the results. Look at the high points and examine your own life choices through the lens of the values compass. See how your choice of clothes, of careers, even of partners is a reflection in some way of the values that you hold most dear. So as those still working on the survey finish up and those who have completed it have a look, really invite you to understand potentially the substructure of your life choices, those things that are truly important to you. When I look at my own life and my own values compass, I can see that my desire for achievement brought me through Yale and the London School of Economics and through the most challenging jobs I could find. And my desire for stimulation brought me to London, of all places, after growing up 6,000 miles away. And my value for joy, well, I happen to be married to a woman named Joy. So it's eerie sometimes how much your values can truly impact your life. So 3 minutes is up. I hope you've all had a chance to see your values compass and to get a visceral sense of your values. Now, I want to bring us back to this question. Remember what brand you chose at the beginning of this presentation? Audi, Toyota, and Volvo. Well, let's just find out how much that choice was mediated by your values. This is the values compass of each of these 3 brands, as inventoried by Erik in his pioneering research in 2015, where he asked 1,200 people to evaluate these brands on these particular values. As you can see, Audi indexes more on the self-enhancement values: functionality, beauty, prestige, stimulation, joy. Volvo, you see a big bump in safety. And Toyota, they exceed the others in the dimension of social responsibility. If you know anyone who bought a Prius because he was the green choice many years ago, you'll understand why that's something that was stood for. Now compare your own values, your values compass, to the values of the brand that you most prefer. What do you see? Can you see the overlaps? Can you see the love of self and efficiency and joy in the Audi? Can you see a particular value for safety in Volvo? Can you see the social responsibility in Toyota combined with the safety and functionality as well? Regardless of what the congruence is in total, I hope that you see that there's in some way your values have been expressed in this particular choice. And if so, with this choice, what other choices? Now, let's bring this into the world of influencer marketing and some of the initial work that we've done to start to prove out this connection. We've seen some patterns. So here's an example. This is Curious Droid. He's a British YouTuber who talks about future technology that doesn't yet exist. And we worked with him in a collaboration with a VPN provider. And this was the values compass of this particular VPN provider. They were quite strong on achievements. They were all about helping people be the best, and they wanted to be the best. And of course, quite strong on safety, which is of course the purpose of a VPN, as well as honesty, highly associated with safety. Not so much on intimacy or beauty, for instance. And Curious Droid had a very similar values profile. We see strong overlaps in achievement, prestige, honesty, a little bit less on safety, given that he's focused on weapons and innovation, but still relatively strong. In fact, it was a 91% values congruence. And the ROI that we saw was huge. Over 4 videos, this influencer made thousands and thousands of pounds for our clients. Let's look at another example. This is another YouTuber who we worked with for the same client. Dark Curiosities is run by a woman who effectively tells mystery stories. She gets people scared. It's kind of a horror channel, but it's very compelling. And we hypothesize that this could be a good integration because ultimately a VPN is about security. And if people are more fear or security conscious, perhaps they would go for a VPN. But this particular influencer, as it turned out, had very different values from this VPN provider. They didn't value safety as much. They certainly didn't value achievement or prestige. In fact, this influencer had more of perhaps a prototypical, a kind of a structure we see in more feminine profiles, highly indexed on honesty, social responsibility, and care, which didn't have so much of an overlap with the high achieving nature of the particular clients. So there was only a 72% values congruence, and reflectively, the ROI was significantly disappointing. This influencer made exactly 2 sales for our particular clients, and she was a major, major loss. So better brand values, or better values congruence, rather, equals better performance from what we've seen so far. Now, just how much better? Potentially, in the words of my fair president, bigly. We've seen correlations between view to purchase conversion, which is that thing that you're really looking for. CPMs, you can generally estimate pretty easily with influencers, whether that's fair. But the question about is an influencer going to convert for you? Huge. We've seen them as high as 0.75 in some samples in terms of the correlation. And that is a massive correlation if indeed it holds out over a larger sample, which we are now collecting. So we want to find out really just how good this is and how much of a difference it could make for these campaigns, because initially it seems extremely exciting, and we would love your participation in our journey in the world of values. And I'd love you to join the cutting edge with us. So are you curious to know your brand's values profile? If so, if you haven't done so in the previous seminar when I had this CTA, type "I'm curious" into the chat and we'll get in touch. So for instance, this is what you might see. This is actually the brand values profile of Tailify when Alice and I inventoried our organization. And as you can see here, we have a strong preference for joy, achievement, and honesty. We love life, we love to have fun, and we love to do the absolute best we can for our clients and to be the best we can be and to exceed all competitors. And of course, we want to do it in a fundamentally honest way because that is who we are. And we like to work with clients who believe the same thing. So would you like to know what your values profile is? If so, type "I'm curious" into the chat. So let's get back to bolognese and zoom out. What we've been talking about here is the bacon, basically. It's delicious. It's incredible. For some, it makes life worth living. But it's just one component of the overall recipe which we're trying to cook, which is a perfect bolognese. Of course, to break down the analogy, what we're talking about with bacon is we're talking about values congruence, this critical secret ingredient. But there's so much more which plays into what we're actually trying to do, which is create a remarkable influencer collaboration. The influencer, of course, has to be available. We're looking for great interaction of the influencer with the audience in their comments. We're looking at attention historically through historical views and that kind of thing. We're looking for reliability. We're looking for at their brand sponsorship history, the audience health, topic focus, topic authority, topic trendiness, brand reputation, content fit, and of course, product relevance. And a hell of a lot more, which simply doesn't fit on this particular metaphor landscape of the bolognese. So you might be wondering, okay, but how important is values congruence really? Well, let's go back to the analogy. Let's say you took out values congruence. You didn't know values congruence, or you didn't add pancetta to the bolognese. Well, whatever you have, it wouldn't be the bolognese. You wouldn't have a remarkable influencer collaboration. What would you have? An average influencer collaboration, a decent influencer collaboration. I think the fairest way to characterize it is you would have an inauthentic influencer collaboration. If you don't have pancetta, it's still a bolognese, but it's not an authentic bolognese. In the same way, if you are not working with influencers who share your values, yeah, you're working with them. It's a collaboration, but it's not an authentic influencer collaboration. An authentic influencer collaboration is one in which you're working with those who share your values. You are your values, but don't forget that your brand is its values. And authentic growth is about amplifying your brand values in the world. In the words of Simon Sinek, it's about working with people who believe what you believe. And that is what brings your brand into the world and what is ultimately a self-expression of all of those who work there as well. And with that, I hope we've brought home the value of values, both for your brand in general and for influencer marketing specifically. And I want to thank you for joining us on this exploration.
Thank you so much, Ian and Erik. I'm aware that we have a few questions. So the first question I had is actually for Erik specifically. And the question is, do you see more and more brands who have conflicting values? And if you do you have any good examples of that?
Yeah, I saw that question as well in the chat. What you see with brands is like, and probably it's very, very human as well. You want to be everything. You want to be the best and excel in everything. You know, I want to be leading. I want to be the most prestigious brand. I want to be CSR minded. I want to be an honest brand. You know, we do everything. We're the best. We can take it all. And what you will see, the more and more you market these things in terms of a brainstorm session or whatever, these ideas will pop up, they will come on the list, and yeah, you get your list because people don't think about this consistency. So what I actually think is at least in the initial steps of marketing, when you put this to a commercial team, people start becoming creative. They come up with a lot of values. They plug it all into the list of brand values or whatever the brand stands for, and put it out there. So if you don't watch out, you get it more and more. And what I mainly see is that either brands put a lot of these in or go to very abstract words. For instance, Unilever for a long time worked with vitality, which encompasses everything, of course, which might be necessary because the brand, is very diverse and encompasses everything. But actually, what does this word say? So I feel there's a tendency. I'm not here on the floor to give you, okay, this brand doing bad, that brand doing good, because then you need to look closer into stuff. But I'm just saying, watch out. The human tendency is to take it all, but in marketing, especially when it comes to brand values, don't want to take it all, but be selective, especially if you want to connect.
Thank you, Erik. We also have questions about how ROI is being calculated, and especially if ROI is calculated only as attributed sales. I believe that one is for you, Ian.
Yes, I responded to this in the chat, but I've realized now I sent it to all panelists. So in the particular cases of the data that we presented, ROI is calculated as attributed sales. Now, there is some evidence to suggest that there's a lot of unattributed sales which you get from influencer marketing, which is just wonderful. But the only people so far with the data to consistently calculate that for a campaign is Google, because only they know everything that you do on the internet, and they would know if you saw an influencer campaign and then a month later you came back and bought the brand directly through the brand's website. So no doubt ROI is higher than that what we're measuring, but typically when we work with clients, they want to know exactly what they're getting and make sure they're at least getting that much, and then anything else that they see is gravy. So it's only attributed measurable ROI that has been presented in the data so far.
Thank you, Ian. We have another question here. So is value congruence relevant for all brands? So unmapping or uncovering your values and influences values. Or is that only relevant for those brands that have really strong values that they are expressing? And I can start with that one, actually. So I would like to take a step back first and talk about the brand values. I believe that all brands, as Erik mentioned previously, have their values every time they speak with the audience, or the way the packaging look that communicates a certain value. And we know that the values drive consumer behavior and they shape the choices we make, which means that the values are really important. That's something we probably made very clear today. So the values are important, but then of course, different brands have different strength of their values. Some brands might have worked even more with marketing towards awareness of their values. But I think that the value congruence for the influence in the brand, even though you feel that your brand might not necessarily have a strong brand values such as Nike or Coca Cola, it is important to build those brand values up since they drive consumer behavior. And a good step on that journey is also unmapping your own brand values and the influence of brand values, because if you have just some desired brand values that you want to communicate, then it's extra important that you work with influencers that are aligned with those values. So with that said, it is important for brands to both have really strong brand values and finding the right ones, but also for the ones who are trying to navigate this wild western of influencers and finding the right ones to build up strong brand values for you, the right ones for you.
Maybe I can add on to that. I want to say two things. One, I mean, you might expect that high brands with high involvement, that values work stronger, like cars. I mean, we're all highly involved when we buy a car. It's not just, you buy one, you think about it. But on the other hand, what I said is it's a subconscious thing, which apparently also probably works and my research showed it actually also, that it works with low involved brand, like for instance, Coca Cola, because make your choice in the flip of a moment, and that's often a values-guided choice, not consciously, but subconsciously. And now, the second thing I want to say is flipping this to influencer marketing. Of course, this is all new. I mean, this whole webinar, I mean, we did it because, well, Ian gave you a couple of examples. Tailify started with piloting, checking out to what extent values actually work for influencer marketing. And the first results are, you know, very promising, very hopeful. But that's also why we gave out this call of please put forward your curiosity and your support, then we can include you in the test to see to what extent it works for your brand. So we can actually, I mean, for now, we say, yeah, okay, perfectly, it works. But I mean, I'm a researcher. I would say you need more data before you can really substantiate it and before you can really act on it and like help the marketing community or whatever in improving influencer marketing. But the first is also promising, and we need your support to take this a step further.
And one thing I'd like to add to that, just to bring this particular question home, brand values are more like your eye color or your skin color or your DNA. You don't get to not have them. It's only a question of what it is you have and whether you know about it or not, and whether you're working with it.
Absolutely. I am unfortunately aware that we're running out of time. We have a few really nice questions coming in. What we can do is that we can answer these questions in the email and send that out later on, just to answer one of them. What will be the next steps as a brand if I would like to explore how to use values to build my influencer strategy? Well, the next step is really to be a part of this research where we can map out your brand's values and the influencers you're working with, their values, and see if there's a congruence there, if they are aligned or not, and how you can improve your strategy. So if you haven't written in this chat here, feel free to reach out to us and we can help you with that. Without further ado, a big thank you for everyone for joining this session and for finding it so interesting. I hope you find it valuable and as exciting as we do at Ian and Erik, and that maybe it triggered some kind of, I know, curiosity to learn more about it and see how you can actually implement that in your work. If you're interested in finding out more, of course, we have Erik's amazing book, Brand Positioning, that you can order home. Or you can just get in touch with us and we can continue exploring values together with you. So with that said, thank you everyone and have a lovely rest of your day.